event. The United Nations Environment Programme was created almost half a century ago to be the voice of the environment in the UN system and the world. 51 years on, UNEP can firmly assert that the science behind the environment has been mainstreamed across systems and in the consciousness of citizens everywhere, and that institutions and processes have been put in place at the intergovernmental, multilateral, national, and local levels to manage and respond to environmental concerns. Legal frameworks are largely in place, but also continue to be developed to safeguard and regulate the health of our planet and the impact of human action. UNEP continues to monitor the state and health of the planet. It ensures that science remains at the center of decision-making processes and that environmental rule of law continues to underpin global environmental governance. For UNEP to succeed in its critical mission, which is more relevant today than ever before, we need your political as well as your financial support. We need to increase the participation of member states in UNEP's governance and to increase co-funding to ensure UNEP can continue to deliver. I am very pleased to ask Ms. Radhika Uhalik, Head of the Secretariat of the Governing Bodies of UNEP, to tell us more. Radhika, please, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm Radhika Uhalik, the Secretary of the Governing Bodies at UNEP, and I'm honored to be here this afternoon speaking to you about UNEP as your partner of choice and how we believe that the organization can be further strengthened with the support of our member states. UNEP has, over 50 years, been working with governments, civil society, the private sector, and UN entities to address humanity's most pressing environmental challenges. In 2012, following the Rio +20 conference, the role, mandate, governance of UNEP was strengthened to become the leading global authority on environment with universal membership in the UN Environment Assembly. Last year, we celebrated UNEP's 50th birthday, and UNEA held its first special session called UNEP at 50. The political declaration from the meeting reinforced UNEP's mandate. Member states and other partners acknowledged and appreciated UNEP's contribution over the decades. They also spoke of the important work that lays ahead of us and UNEP's role in it, as well as the participation of member states in governance of UNEP, our two main topics for discussion today. Over the years, UNEP's mandate has been strengthened. And as your partner, we have been able to demonstrate that environmental multilateralism works and delivers results for people and planet. This slide provides a snapshot of where UNEP has had an impact. For example, the biodiversity framework, promoting environmental law, marine litter, plastic pollution, safeguarding coral reefs, and many more areas. For more results, I invite you to read the booklet, UNEP, Your Partner for People and Planet, which is available desk to desk or chair to chair in the meeting room and also online. Despite the significant progress that we have witnessed in many environmental areas in the past 50 years, we are still confronted with the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity and nature loss, and pollution and waste. UNEP, with its mandate, experience, expertise, dedicated staff, and the medium-term strategy and program, is your partner to realize the SDGs and to leave no one behind. But to be fit for purpose, we need to strengthen UNEP and we need the support of the member states. There are, of course, many ways that member states can help to strengthen the organization. But relevant for our discussion today is the importance to broaden the base, meaning realizing the full potential of the universal membership. More specifically, we will speak of the importance of broadening the base in support of governance and in support of funding. On governance, we want to promote the increased participation of member states, including those without diplomatic representation in Nairobi, in the governance of UNEP between one UNEA session to the next. We also want to encourage more member states to seek accreditation with the Committee of the Permanent Representatives, the CPR, as it is a precondition for participating in the meetings of the CPR. On funding, we encourage more member states to provide core funding to UNEP's Environment Fund, considering that universal membership in principle entails universal core funding responsibilities. Let me start by speaking a bit more in detail on UNEP's governance. UNEA, as you know, is the highest governing body of UNEP, and it meets every 2 years. The Committee of the Permanent Representatives, the CPR, is an intersessional subsidiary body of UNEA, and it supports the work of UNEA between one UNEA to the next. The CPR meets in different configurations. First, every quarter, the CPR meets in a formal meeting. Second, informal meeting, referred to as the subcommittee meetings, are held 2 or 3 times a month, mostly briefings by the Secretariat on important issues. Thirdly, the CPR holds a 5-day meeting in October or November each year, referred to as the annual subcommittee meeting, mainly to carry out oversight function of UNEP. Funding support is provided to the CPR members from developing countries to travel to Nairobi to participate in the annual subcommittee in person. Lastly, the open-ended CPR is like a preparatory committee that meets immediately prior to UNEA for 5 days to negotiate all draft resolutions and decisions for adoption by UNEA. In this slide, you can see the current status of accreditation and participation in the CPR, both globally and in the Asia-Pacific region. Globally, 132 countries are accredited to the CPR, and 22 of those come from this Asia-Pacific region. Accreditation to the CPR is a precondition for participation in the intersessional governance of UNEP. Looking at accreditation in the CPR meetings, you can see that the figure is in higher 70s, so it is far from universal. You can also see that the numbers have gone up compared to pre-COVID meetings, partly due to the provision of hybrid meetings. As a contrast, at UNEA 5.2, which was held in a hybrid format, we had 167 member states participating. So there is significant scope to increase the participation also in the CPR, which is open to all member states of the UN, as well as the Cook Islands and Niue. Since the meetings of the CPR are hybrid in nature, member states outside of Nairobi, if accredited, can join the meetings easily using the virtual platform. In summary, we hope that the CPR will also reach universal membership, just like UNEA. Today, we will hear from our panelists on the importance of participation in the governance of UNEP through the CPR. Let me just mention a few examples: the possibility to influence discussions in the CPR, the contribution to the preparations of UNEA, to provide guidance on implementation of strategy and program, and of course, accredited members will receive information on implementation of resolutions. For UNEP, the advantages are a stronger UNEP, a greater ownership and interest in UNEP, and greater alignment of strategy and program to priorities of wider membership. A truly global and universal organization also means more legitimacy. How to get accredited to the CPR? It is quite simple. A member state would simply have to submit a note verbal or a letter to the Secretariat informing of the wish to get accredited and providing the names and contact details of the representatives from the delegation who would like to get accredited. Following this, the representatives will be able to register and participate in person or online in the meetings of the committee. It is important to note that the procedure is same regardless of the location. You could be in Nairobi, at capitals, or at an embassy, or at a permanent mission in New York or Geneva. All you have to do is submit a note verbal indicating your wish to get accredited and providing the names and contact details. At this stage, I will invite participants to view a short video.
Our planet is facing unprecedented environmental threats that will have consequences for us and future generations. These threats are global, transcending political borders. The science is clear. Together, we have a responsibility to follow the facts. Together, we have a responsibility to do our share to find global solutions to our planetary crisis. At the United Nations Environment Programme, our vision is to help people and countries to thrive while living in harmony with nature. We believe it is possible. Our mission is to inform, enable, and inspire people and countries to act and act decisively to reverse the effects of climate change, to strengthen biodiversity, and to limit the impact of pollution on our wild spaces, our oceans, and our cities. UNEP identifies and addresses the root causes of environmental challenges. In short, we need to move towards sustainable consumption and production. That is why we work with countries to integrate environmental sustainability into economic growth. We support each and every country. Now we need your help. All 193 countries in the UN agreed to share the responsibility to support UNEP's Environment Fund. The size of the contribution from each country is calculated using a tool that countries themselves agreed to. These flexible funds make it possible for UNEP to provide unbiased science, catalyze policy reforms, and enable action. By contributing to the Environment Fund, each country is honoring its commitment to global environmental action. By contributing to the Environment Fund, each country is in solidarity with its fellow nations and in solidarity with nature. We call on all countries to do their part. Help fund UNEP. Pay your share. For people and planet.
I hope you enjoyed the video. I will now give more details on the funding of UNEP and the importance of broadening the funding base. To be able to fulfill its mandate and to deliver its program, UNEP relies on voluntary contributions for over 95% of the funding needed. We are very grateful to all the funding partners that support UNEP. In this chart, you can see a combined 5-year income during years 2018 to 2022. The reason we are looking at 5 years rather than 1 year is that many funds are multi-year, and just looking at 1 year would skew the figures. The sources of income are split by flexible core contributions that consist of, firstly, the UN regular budget, the red slice, and the only non-voluntary income. And secondly, the green slice, income of to UNEP's core fund, the Environment Fund. These two funds give UNEP flexibility to implement the program of work as approved by member states. Now, earmarked contributions consist of earmarked funds from member states and other partners, the light blue slice, as well as global funds such as Global Environmental Facility and the Green Climate Fund, the dark blue slice. These funds help expand and replicate results in more countries with more partners. In the 5-year period in question, around 80% of the total income was earmarked and around 20% was flexible core contributions. While total income to UNEP has been growing, the growth has mostly been on the side of earmarked funds. This imbalance between earmarked funding on one side and core and flexible funding on the other side comes with its challenges. For example, because earmarked funds often reflect funding partner priorities, it may distract the strategic focus of UNEP and hinder a balanced, effective delivery of the medium-term strategy. To help balance the funding and to provide an option to partners to provide softly earmarked funding rather than tightly earmarked funding, UNEP last year launched 3 thematic funds in support of the objectives of the medium-term strategy. We will not go into detail of those funds today, but can provide information to those interested later. The Environment Fund was established in 1972 as a bedrock of core funds for UNEP's delivery worldwide. It gives UNEP flexibility to implement the approved program and to strategically respond to emerging challenges. The initial vision of the fund was $100 million annually, which in today's money would be over $700 million. Environment Fund contributions were originally made voluntary so that potential for growth in financing the global environment agenda was not restricted. This had not quite happened. So in 2002, the member states decided that a mechanism was needed to broaden the base of contributions and enhance the predictability of financing the Environment Fund. Hence, the Voluntary Indicative Scale of Contributions, VISC, was established with a set of parameters which were linked to the UN-assessed scale of contributions that provides the basis for the UN regular budget. It is important to highlight that according to the VISC, member states are requested to contribute taking into account their size of the economy and their status of the social development. This means that the amount of requested contributions range from $1,000 to $12 million depending on the country. Here, you can see the trends for the Environment Fund for the last 21 years. It shows the Environment Fund, the green line, the income to the fund, the blue line, and the number of member states contributing, the red line. After the introduction of the VISC, we saw an upswing in the number of member states that contributed, that is the red line, up to a record number of 124 member states contributing. Last year, we were at 83 member states, which is an increase from previous years, but it is still less than half of the membership of UNEA. Following Rio +20, where the role and mandate of UNEP was strengthened, we can see that the ambition level and budget, the green line, of the Environment Fund increased. However, it did not seem to have any positive effect on member states contributing, again, the red line. Looking at funding of Environment Fund from Asia Pacific region, we can see that the introduction of the VISC caused an upswing also in Asia Pacific in the number of member states contributing to 28 states, the red line. But in the last decade, the number of contributions has remained to around 20 member states out of 39, about half of the member states. Here, I want to highlight that while for accreditation, we refer to 41 states, in light of the fact that the Cook Islands and Niue can get accredited to the CPR in light of the Governing Council Decision 19/32, but for funding, we refer to the 39 states members of the UN. We can see that total number from the region has been fairly consistent, just under $5 million, which is 17% of the VISC, that is the blue line. On behalf of UNEP, I would like to convey gratitude to these countries from the Asia-Pacific region that have contributed to the Environment Fund in 2022 and 2023. In this Parliament chart, we have 193 dots representing each member state. The green dots, 45 of them, represent countries who paid their full share in accordance with the VISC. The orange dots, 38 of them are countries that paid other amounts but less than their VISC. The dark blue lines, or the dots, are 110 of the countries that didn't pay in 2022. In Asia-Pacific region, 20 member states out of the 39 contributed, and 7 contributed at the full share level of their VISC. In summary, there are 2 main challenges with the funding situation today. 1, the imbalance of earmarked and core funding, which I have already spoken of. And 2, the narrow funding base whereby less than half of the membership provides funding. In fact, UNEP depends on the top 15 contributors for over 90% of its income. To widen the funding base, we believe that the VISC is still an important tool. UNEP will therefore continue applying the VISC as requested by UNEA. In this graph, you can see all the member states globally that contributed their full share to the Environment Fund, but as pay their VISC in 2022. Asia-Pacific countries are highlighted in this slide. The list is not only consisting of traditional donor countries or developed countries, but also includes SIDS and LDCs in addition to OECD countries, big and small, representing all UN regions. We are grateful for all of them. So what are the benefits to member states of ensuring that UNEP has enough core funding through the Environment Fund? Most important is that a strong Environment Fund means a stronger UNEP, fit for purpose in addressing the triple planetary crisis through its strategy and program. This benefits member states through capacity building to help achieve environmental commitments, through science policy guidance, the convening power of UNEP, including UNEA, environmental law, and much more. It also helps countries access more financing for the environment from other sources. So, how does a strong Environment Fund support a country's access to environmental financing from other partners? Let us quickly look at an example of the partnership between UNEP and the Global Environment Facility, GEF. UNEP is a founding partner of GEF with UNDP and the World Bank, and one of 18 agencies accredited to work with recipient countries to design and deliver GEF projects. UNEP's unique mandate as the environmental voice of the UN, and capacity in bringing environmental science to policy has made it a partner of choice for countries seeking to leverage GEF investment. UNEP is currently the GEF's 3rd largest delivery partner, with an active portfolio representing over $1.7 billion in GEF investment across 446 active and approved projects. So the key message here is that a strong, appropriately funded UNEP is able to offer the subject and technical expertise, the policy guidance, and the convening power that is needed to support national partners to design and deliver the high-impact interventions that they need in order to meet their environmental ambitions and their international obligations. Partnering with UNEP helps to design interventions that are successful in competing for and securing GEF and other financing. As a snapshot, you can see that the current active GEF portfolio in Asia Pacific region is 88 projects in around 30 countries. Looking at the money, this portfolio is worth $310 million US. This in turn has attracted co-financing of $2.84 billion US. The contribution from Asia Pacific last year to the Environment Fund was $4.7 million US. While we are not claiming to prove a direct cause and effect link, it is true that a strong UNEP secretariat is able to support countries to design competitive projects and programs to secure GEF funding, and following this, guide the impactful implementation of the programs. So it can be argued that the leveraging power of the Environment Fund is quite significant. Let me end by reiterating that to realize the full potential of a universal membership, we need more countries participating in the governance and funding of UNEP. Every country matters, every country counts. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention, and I will hand over to Shireen. Thank you.
Radhika, thank you so much for an excellent presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, please allow me to introduce our high-level panel that will now be chaired by Ms. Elizabeth Bremer. Elizabeth Bremer, Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of UNEP. Sakusa Tubuna, Assistant Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister of Fiji. Kotaro Kawamata, Director of International Strategy Division, Global Bureau, Ministry of Environment, Japan. And Mr. Firas Houri, Chair of the Committee of Permanent Representatives of UNEP and the Permanent Representative of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan to UNEP. I would like to call upon Assistant Secretary General Bremer to deliver opening remarks, and then I will hand over the floor to her to moderate the panel, and I'll take over the open floor at the end of the session. Elizabeth, please.
Thank you very much, colleague. Good afternoon to you all. Excellencies, good afternoon, and thank you very much for giving us time to be with us and share with us those few thoughts from your country's perspective and how that will be relevant specifically to this region. Thank you very much. All has already been said by the previous speaker, Radhika, in terms of why UNEP should be your partner of choice. And I think she has alluded the reasons behind that statement. And this panel will help us to prove if that is true or not, so that you, as member states from this region, you will also be able to assess that yourself. So I will only give few key messages, not to take much of your time. First, aligning with what the previous speaker has already presented to us, and also creating that window for our panel discussion to follow thereafter. And my few messages are one, we are all aware and we see the escalating climate change, nature loss or biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste. So clearly these and other environmental challenges are increasing, are demanding at all levels, and that also put an increased demand on the UN Environment Program in terms of supporting and working with countries to respond to those growing and increasing demands. And yet you member states, you have accredited to UNEP or mandated UNEP to be the custodian of the environmental dimension of sustainable development and committed to to be your partner on this journey to tackle these growing planetary crises. So that's one. Two, if that is the case, challenges are increasing. Yes, UNEP is your partner, but also UNEP need to be enabled. And therefore, to ensure that UNEP can better play that role as a partner of choice in tackling this planetary crisis, I think it's fair to say that the UNEP role equally need to be enhanced and strengthened. And UNEP also need to ensure, or you need to ensure that in enabling UNEP, that UNEP has the sufficient core resources to be able to respond, and that member states equally participate actively in the governance discussions and structures of the organization. And this is why we are here to speak about widening that base of UNEP, not just in terms of resources, but also that active participation in its global policy making, for which you are the key partners at hand to do that, and that's that governance structure. So we are here to engage in that dialogue with you as member states, and our panelists will just be able to introduce those aspects, looking specifically at how best both the funding base and the governance base of the organization can be further strengthened. Three, and Radhika has talked about that, the Environment Fund is the core funding or core funding base for the organization, which is entirely funded by you member states. And with less than half of the member states contributing, as it has been shown, we have a way to go and reach that universality in responsibility. We need to understand how to improve that situation. And we know that this is equal importance to you, member states. And we are grateful for the opportunity to engage, therefore, in this discussion so that both the organization and you, member states, get a better understanding, particularly of that importance. The fourth and my last message is that your guidance as member states is key in shaping the global environmental agenda, and for UNEP to be able to play that key role as the global authority on the environment. So the Committee of Permanent Representative accreditation is therefore important in this regard, because we want to ensure what UNEP does is what the member states ask it to do. But the member states can only do that by also ensuring that you are actively participating and engaging in those discussions which take place through the governing bodies of the organization. And this is the body, the CPR, Committee of Permanent Representatives, the UNEA Environment Assembly, and all the other committees established under it, which takes those decisions, particularly to that Global Environment Assembly, which then come back to the member states, as well as us as an organization for implementation. So your support and engagement becomes critical for these governing bodies to also function the way you have mandated them to function. So thank you very much. And with those few messages and with your permission, then and permission of Shireen, I will move to the panel. So let me begin with our Ambassador Firaz Kori, who is also our chair of the Committee of Permanent Representatives. So with him, he's not just the ambassador for his government, Hashmed of Jordan, Kingdom of Jordan, but is also carrying all member states of the UN Environment Assembly, 193, in his shoulders. Indeed, a heavy load, but then where the member states take a step back, we keep him on the driver's seat. And that's the heavy load he's talking about. So, Ambassador, we are here looking at strengthening that governance body you are leading. And through that, to also strengthen the role of the organization to be able to respond to the demands which you member states under your leadership mandate the organization to do. And it is through you and that body and the member states that the organization expects to be enabled to respond to those demands. So how do you see, or how can we then empower this very same organization, the UN Environment Program, in this changing world? And we do take cognizance that the world is changing, has changed. The environmental challenges are increasing by the day. The demands are increasing by the minute and second. And the responses were expected since yesterday. How do we empower this organization? To you, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, dear Sister Elizabeth, for your presentation and for your being here with us. And at the same time, just let me brief about myself, the Ambassador of Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. As you said, I'm the chair of CPR. I was elected just recently, and I started my tenure for 2 years as of July 1st. Indeed, I'm representing all the committee members, all the ambassadors, accredited back in Nairobi. But at the same time, I'm very proud that the Asia Pacific group nominated me to become the chair. So this is why I'm here in my capacity as chair of CPR, and proudly as a representative of Asia Pacific to become a chair of CPR. And this is why I took this trip to come here for 2 reasons. The first one, to be part of it, to show to whole world, and especially to the Asia Pacific countries, that the chair is there for you. And at the same time, I want you also to be supportive to our work. I have in my mind 2 things, which has been discussed by our friend Radhika and by yourself, that half of Asia Pacific countries are not represented in the CPR committee. So even if you are not accredited in Nairobi, if you don't have embassy in Nairobi, but you can be accredited as member of CPR. And this will strengthen our future look into how the CPR itself will become a huge support for the program itself. Now we know the program is very important because of what we have been seeing, the climate change, the biodiversity loss, and everything related to what we are seeing right now. The second thing, I am asking all the countries to voluntarily support the program. Jordan fulfilled its obligation in this matter, and I really urge you all to come to support the fund and the fund of the program itself. As we see, we look a couple of days ago to what happened in New York. You look what happens of floods all over the world. We have many things changing the whole world, and I think right now it's us as a member states of UNEP to continue supporting this program because it's playing a vital role in this world at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And I think he has made the case. We cannot be engaged by keeping away. We need to be at the table. The views need to be heard. And the views of the many is part of the action to move our agenda forward.
Exactly, and I want to continue saying that you can reach to us back in Nairobi, those countries that are not member of the CPR. We are ready to help you and ready to support you, and we'll give you our contacts to be there for you, to help, because your help is very important for our committee to continue conducting its business and to support UNEP from now on.
Indeed, Ambassador, and now that we have our bureau's CPR sessions in hybrid, so even that engagement directly hybrid methodology has been made possible for that purpose. So moving forward, allow me to reach out now to His Excellency Sakiusa Tuboma, our Assistant Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister of Fiji. And before I invite the Minister, and what Radhika has already showed, every dollar counts. There is nothing like small money or big money, especially recalling that even economists have told us every $1 put into conservation has the ability to accrue at least $30 of benefits. That already indicates that every cent counts in terms of its multiplying effect. And this is what I would like to talk to His Excellency, Mr. Tubona, that the government of Fiji, first, thank you very much for supporting the organization, because we all know how big or small Fiji is. And we also know the challenges the small island developing states are facing when we look at environmental issues generally. And that could be environment, which has an impact on social and also economic development of the country. Notwithstanding, the government of Fiji has been able to support by paying its full share of the voluntary indicative scale of contribution to the Environment Fund. And really, Fiji then is our best example, best leader, and commitment to the mandate of the organization, and more so to the global environmental agenda. So, Your Excellency, could you probably tell us or share with us how does the government really, despite which we take cognizance of and fully respect the challenges the country may be going through and is going through, and still see UNEP as an important partner of choice and put that investment into its budget and being able to pay full, so that then hopefully other member states can be able to learn from that, and particularly those from the small island developing states. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind invitation to be part of this panel and the opportunity to contribute to the discussions on the widening of UNEP's funding base I appreciate the recognition of Fiji's consistent contribution to UNEP Environmental Fund, including the level of voluntary indicative scale of contributions, UICS. Fiji takes pride in its commitment to UNEP's mandate and the global environmental agenda for several compelling reasons. Fiji recognizes the need to address global environmental challenges collaboratively. Our nation, like many other small island states, is highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, including rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and the degradation of our marine ecosystems. By actively contributing to UNEP's Environment Fund, we participate in a collective effort to mitigate these threats and ensure the well-being of our environment for future generations. Secondly, Fiji acknowledges the independence of environmental issues and their significant influence on our socio-economic development. Healthy ecosystems are crucial for sustaining key sectors of our economy, such as agriculture, tourism, and fisheries. Our contributions to the Environment Fund serves as investments in the sustainability of these critical sectors, which underpins our nation's economic stability. Just for your information, Fiji's major industry, is tourism. And, when I go around to talk with communities, I always tell them that we need to protect our environment. This is what our tourists come and see. Our level of tourism has increased significantly from 1999 when we had COVID. Now we have rebound to almost 100% of the pre-COVID numbers. So tourism is quite a large industry, and it is our major industry, which is sustaining the economy. But the essence in all this is to ensure that we have strong environmental laws and ensuring that we protect our environment for the tourists to come and experience. UNEP has strongly supported Fiji through its policy development, scientific research, resource mobilization, and formulation of future-oriented solutions. Our successful achievement of targets related to ozone-depleting substances, as outlined in the Montreal Protocol, is largely attributed to UNEP's invaluable assistance. Fiji proudly contributes its full share of financial support to UNEP, also because we would like UNEP to have a stronger presence in the Pacific. This would enable us to offer more comprehensive solutions to pressing challenges like marine plastic pollution, biodiversity preservation, and ozone layer restoration. Moreover, Fiji is firmly committed to fulfilling its international obligations and responsibilities as a responsible member of the global community. By voluntarily contributing to our full share of the Environment Fund, we uphold the principles of equity and shared responsibility, reinforcing the notion that all nations, regardless of size or resources, have a role to play in addressing global environmental challenges. Fiji places great importance on multilateralism and collaborative global efforts to addressing pressing issues. Our contributions to the Environmental Fund reflect our belief in the power of collective action and the necessity for nations to act collectively in safeguarding our planet. Lastly, Fiji's full contribution to UNEP Environment Fund underscores our deep commitment to environmental sustainability, our acknowledgement of the global nature of environmental challenges, and our dedication to being responsible global citizens. We stand shoulder to shoulder with other nations in our collective pursuit of a more environmentally resilient and sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Tubona, for those views, and really important, especially coming from a small developing island states, the commitment and the sacrifice put into ensuring that the environmental agenda is not just a national issue, but through the national commitment and together as a region to globally will help us make a difference on the agenda. Let's now hear from, I will say, from this region, one of our top 15 countries contributing to the Environment Fund, the government of Japan, for which we sincerely thank. And me wearing my previous hat, I can even add to my thanks, because again, the government of Japan had created what we call Japan Biodiversity Fund, without which probably all these statistics we hear on the loss of biodiversity would have been something else completely. But it was that fund which, much as we had not reached where we wanted to be, but imagine where we would have been today. Probably all of us would have already not been on this land. So for that, government of Japan, again, sincere thanks. So let's hear from Mr. Kotaro Kawamata, who is the director of the International Strategy Division in the Global Environment Bureau of the Ministry of Environment in Japan, who has been able to fully pay its voluntary indicative contribution to the organization, in addition to other commitments in other governing bodies for which, again, environmental agenda do benefits. And basically to share with us, and maybe using that example, how can we all succeed to be able to encourage more countries to contribute to the fund, irrespective of the amount. But also, why is it important for us all to ensure that that funding gap is widened, and not that we keep knocking only on the doors of Japan, but we widen that, and basically to ensure that more member states do contribute their share. So welcome, Mr. Kawama.
Thank you, Elizabeth-san, and thank you for your warm words on the contribution of Japan to the CBD. And yes, that we appreciate the work of the UNEP because that UNEP is only coordinating body in the UN system dedicated to the environment issues. So that we see a lot of the big contribution and the role of the UNEP in tackling the triple global crisis on climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And especially that we see the great work of the UNEP to initiating the legally binding the instruments on plastic pollution, the currently ongoing work, and a lot of our colleagues in this conference forum also in the morning session insist of the importance of tackling plastic pollution. So, and also another example is that Minamata Convention on Mercury as well. The Japan hosted that conference for Minamata Convention adoption. And so this, intergovernmental process need to tackle emerging global issues, so that global environmental issues cannot be solved by single countries. We need the international cooperation, and with the existence of the UNEP, we can come together and discuss and find a way to solve those problems. So that's a very strong role of the UNEP. The another very important role is science policy platform. IPCC, IPBES, and IRP, all those are funded by the Environment Fund. And these activities are basis for our government to create our policy making. So without those scientific evidence, we cannot make good policies to solve these problems. And also, produce a lot of good knowledge products like the emission gap report or global environment outlook, global chemical outlook. Those the knowledge products also assist us to create the good policy making. So these are the good examples of the UNEP's role in the this international society, and also, but unfortunately, not all those activities were recognized by many people. So we also need to make effort to disseminate those UNEP's work and importance of that work. But I also asked the UNEP to more broadly disseminate this kind of activities wider public. That will help us to provide more budget contributions. We need to, always every year we have to fight against that finance ministry to securing the budget. So with the understanding by the finance ministries, then that we can get more money to contribute to the fund. So, and also that I'm very happy to sit besides that ambassadors of the Jordan, because that we are neighboring country in the US seating system. So often that we see Jordan the next to Japan. And so, and also CPR, also very important. I was surprised that, so many Asia Pacific countries are not the member of the CPR. So this also that we learned that it is very easy to be accredited to the CPR. So that this time that I'm very much encourage our colleagues in Asia Pacific region to join the CPR and this is this helps us as the voice of the AP region can be reached to more in the UNEA and the UNEP related activities. So this is quite important for us to have voices in the CPR more, and that helps, I think, that the advanced issue in the Asia Pacific region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kawamata. Indeed, you have reminded us also in the UN environment that all those knowledge products, if we are not effectively disseminating them, because they help to show what we are doing, then we are not helping you. So that's our take home, which we'll pick up. I'm wondering whether our chair of CPR has lasting words from this conversation before I invite question and answers through Shireen.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I fully agree with what the dignitaries just said right now. It's if we have half of member states of Asia Pacific not member of the CPR, how can we represent the Asia itself? We are asking them to do it because our meeting is hybrid, as you said, so all the time they can join us online. No need for them to come to Nairobi. It's very easy process just to have register, just throw a note verbal, and we will really support him and help the half of Asia Pacific that not member of the CPR. And also stress again on this voluntary fund. Our countries are supporting UNEP, not because we love UNEP, but because we know that what UNEP is doing. And I ask all the rest of Asia Pacific countries to jump in and to support with this voluntarily support to all the programs of UNEP. And we are ready to reach. I'm happy to be there as chair of CPR. It's a huge burden, but we are ready for that with the support of the Secretariat, the support of everyone at UNEP. We will achieve, I'm pretty sure of that. And I'm sure that after this meeting, after we close this ministerial meeting here in Sri Lanka, we will have a fruitful outcome, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Indeed, what my other takeaway, the ambassador cannot just speak and it ends here. So don't be surprised in the coming week or weeks, you will have a communication either from the Secretariat or from the ambassador himself, reminding the region of this conversation together with what needs to be done, which is a simple process to get your government accredited to the CPR. So with that, I thank the excellencies for their contribution, but I know we are not done yet because you must be burning with questions and comments. So Sharon.
Our sincere thanks to the distinguished panel and to Elizabeth for excellent moderation. I think we thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It's a difficult conversation. We're talking about accreditations, member states, money to international organizations to fulfill the role, and yet we found the narrative to be compelling and very, very interesting. And I myself have so many questions, but I think we would like to open the floor and I'd like to see a show of hands. Thank you very much. So we'll start from the back. We can have questions and we can have commentary as well from you. Please introduce yourself and your organization.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. It was very fruitful. Thank you, ministers, and thank you, UNEP. I am Hania. I am from Iran, and I am also affiliated to the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. I want to say congratulations to Japan because recently your country recognized indigenous peoples in your domestic laws, and you're among 3 countries who recognize indigenous peoples in whole Asia. That you're recognizing indigenous peoples. I just have a very short comment, and this is very good opportunity for us as grassroots that can we talk with you as governments. We know that decisions are making by you, and it is very important what from this forum, when you come back to your country, what you bring with you. And I want to mention just one thing, because all of you mentioned about fundraising and financing. I want to say that yes, it is very important that all the governments in whole Asia cooperate together about financing for our environmental programs. But I want to say something from my point of view, because some of these financing cannot go to some countries because 10 countries all over Asia are under sanctions and UCMs. So I want to just raise this issue that you as governments who are very concerned about the environment of our planet and especially our region, please consider this, because the environmental problems have butterfly effects. And if we marginalize some countries because of the sanctions, especially marginalized the local communities and indigenous people of that countries because of the sanctions. So that butterfly effect may come back to us too. It was my comment, and I hope when you come back to your country, you raise this issue as a very grassroots problem and very important problem that we are facing for over 4 decades. And yes, it was all. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any comments from the panel? Okay, we thank you. I just want to say that we also have quite a significant participation online, which took us a little bit by surprise. We have so many participants following globally online. So I would like to ask them, should they have a comment or should they have a question, to raise their hand online at the Zoom link and let us know. And we will be able to take their questions and commentary straight away. So as they get ready to do so, I have a question myself, but I want to see a show of hands from the floor. We will give precedence to that, please.
Thank you. This is Pem Kandel from the ICIMOD, International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. I'm the policy advisor, chief policy advisor. You know that ICIMOD is looking after the mountain agenda. So we had also statement in this morning. So my communication is a little bit general. So of course, UNEP is the partner of choice, no doubt, to protect the environment and climate change. So from the beginning, UNEP is providing the very policy direction to protect the living planet. So from the first human environment conference held in 1972. After the number of multilateral environmental agreement has been done, and now we are talking about the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. So in ICIMOD is a regional organization looking after the 8 SKH countries. So under my leadership, we are reviewing the implementation status of multilateral environmental program in the region. So to look at the achievement, challenge, gap, and future priority, how policies are working in the member nation, whether these policies are really implementing or not. So the findings show that there are a number of policy. There are a number of policy in physical state, I would say that, but the implementation and functionality is very poor. There is the issue in the process. I mean, in the implementation, because of lack of resources, capacity, and data. I think for the panel, I would like to just communicate that this is the finding from the study. So we have to focus on the resources. We have the nationally determined contribution, national adaptation plan, and the NBSAP. So number of policies and legal instruments are there in the member nation, but that their implementation status is very poor. So in our region, about 75% resource gap. There is big resource gap, about 70% on an average. So that is why I think UNEP is the best choice. UNEP has to widen its capacity and to provide the resources, because we have to include the private sector also to manage the climate change and biodiversity and pollution related issues. So this is my simple communication about our study. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for your valuable contribution. Any other questions or comments from the floor or online? Okay, so maybe as we kind of get warmed up, I would love to follow up on a point that was made by Director Kawamata in his intervention, where you rightly indicated that UNEP has an opportunity to do more with its knowledge products, with its rich outputs in terms of the science. And my question to you, and maybe to the panel, we talk a lot about the science policy interface, and 51 years ago, ministries of environment were a novelty. Putting the environment on the table as a key element of policy making was new. Today, it's not. Today, the environment is part and parcel of almost every particle of decision making across government. So it filters through industry, finance, economy, local government. So my question to you from your everyday work, and really to the panel, And I would love to also hear Elizabeth's thoughts on that. To what extent do other ministries that go beyond the ministries of environment are aware of UNEP's work, like the emissions gap report, like the chemicals outlooks? And to what extent do you feel we should do more to, or maybe through ministries of environment, we should do more to ensure that that part of the science makes its way through other parts of government more clearly and more robustly? So your thoughts on that would be appreciated. And then I will go to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Jordan, Chair of the CPR, and also to Fiji for their thoughts. And then I'll end with Elizabeth.
So I start. Okay. Thank you very much for your question. That yes, that the environmental issue, especially climate change, is widely acknowledged in other ministries as well, and they are definitely need to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So, but still, there's some kind of information gap, I feel, with the Ministry of Environment and other ministries, so that we very much need to, we feel, disseminate that knowledge to other ministries. And also, I think that, in Japan, the Ministry of Environment role is a bit changing. I think that we, now that the other ministries also engage in tackling the climate change already, but still, very much difficult to transform our economies and societies. And we feel that our role of the Ministry of Environment to the urge or make it happen, such kind of transformational change. So urge other ministries to change their practices, business as usual thinking, and change the notion of the way of their businesses. So that's I think that the very important role for the Ministry of Environment. And knowledge product you mentioned that are very much helpful to urge such kind of transformational change. So so that cooperating together with that Ministry of Environment and UNEP, then more the efforts would like to make to disseminate those knowledge products.
Thank you very much. That clearly indicates that there is an opportunity and a chance to scale and to raise the profile of the science that is produced through UNEP's facilitation, adding value across government and in an all government, all society approach. So let me go to Ambassador Houri, and I would really like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much. I fully agree with what my colleague from Japan said, that there is a gap actually between the Ministry of Environment, not only in Jordan, maybe all over the world, and the other ministries. They don't understand exactly what this ministry is doing. And to some extent, they are underestimating the work of Ministry of Environment. Why we have a ministry, why we have a minister, why we have a number of colleagues, but they don't look into what's happening in the world with climate change, with the loss of biodiversity, with everything is happening right now has to do with environment itself. In my capacity as ambassador of Jordan, I am the second ambassador to Kenya. The embassy was opened just recently, 2016. So since then, as an ambassador, as a representative of the embassy of Jordan to UNEP and UN Habitat, starting to have more of awareness in the government itself about the work of UNEP. Now we have a duty, but at the same time, when you look to it from another angle, we have the COP is going around. We have just recently the Africa Summit Climate in Nairobi. So the eyes start open wide for the work of those entities, and especially with the lead of UNEP, the importance of the work has been conducted to make it easier for the people to understand what's going on. UNEP can take the lead. UNEP can put more of outcome for the people. The problem is that now we have to convince our government entities, the most important thing, that we are, I'm doing it really very hard from why I'm here, but the good thing that I have a very excellent relation with the Secretary General of Ministry of Environment, Dr. Muhammad Khashashne. He's also representing alongside Japan with the INC Bureau from Asia Pacific. So this awareness comes through these steps. And another step is very important for Jordan, is that we are going to have the open-ended group of science policy meeting in December in the Dead Sea. About 600 experts will be attending. And we are working right now in January for the geo expert authors to have a meeting in the Dead Sea. So at this stage, we can raise the importance of UNEP itself, the programs, all the experts, all the meetings going around through the work we are conducting to raise the eyebrows for the work that the Ministry of Environment in every place is working, is doing, and the importance of the outcome that comes from UNEP programs, meetings, something like this. This is also very important for us, alongside the COP, alongside the different meetings or summits for climate change all over the world.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Assistant Minister Tabuna, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I fully agree with the sentiments that has already been expressed by our colleagues here. It's just there needs to be a lot of capacity also amongst the other government agencies, not to recognize the functional roles of the environment and science-based products that are being promoted by the environment, Department of Environment. In Fiji, since we came into power under the new government for the last 8 months, we have recognized the need for more coherence of policies. And we had a separate climate change department. It is based with the Ministry of Finance. But now since coming into power, we have established this to be a new ministry with the the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. So there needs to be a lot of coherence and synergy between these two agencies. And of course, climate change is our biggest the problem, perhaps maybe I can say, in the Pacific. And of course, Fiji, when a few years ago, 8 years ago, we had a Category 5 cyclone, which of course, caused widespread devastation, and it just slashed off 50% of the country's GDP, and it's quite a significant threat. So climate change is an issue, and we need more empowerment of our communities to understand what needs to be done. Communities needs to undertake another change at the local level, and they have to be provided with all those information on what they need to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I go to Assistant Secretary General Mrema, we will have to make the question just a little bit more difficult. So I'll just add a notch, just a notch. Yesterday, we concluded the Science Policy Business Forum Asia Pacific with 150 experts, including captains of industry globally, coming from their headquarters in Sydney and in the US and everywhere, and of course, the Asia Pacific business leaders. And in that conversation, they identified policy coherence as a major barrier at the local level, at the national level, and of course, regionally and internationally, to greater support and input from the business and industry community, the R&D community, bringing a green structural transformation to our countries and making things better. And they said policy coherence is not only a barrier, it could be a threat. So with the policy coherence angle across government, and with what you said now, how do you feel about, do we need to do more in terms of, as we approach UNEP 6 towards an all government, all society approach?
Thank you for the question. But I fully agree with what His Excellency Tubona has indicated. And I think the world we've learned through history. So allow me to go just a minute through history. In the last probably 15 years or so, at national level, there was a complete separation from climate issues where they're being dealt with, which was more aligned, connected with ministries of finance, and environment ministries completely, on the other hand, so to speak, marginalized or weaker ministries. And not surprising that if you take that 15 years to date, you go to any country, even at international conversation, climate change takes the upper hand. It's only in the recent years that we have realized actually climate change is not happening in the blue space or green space, if there's anything like that. All the changes in climate, what we are seeing today with our naked eyes are happening on the ecosystem. Whether you are talking floods, you are talking heat waves, we are talking drought, wildfires, they are happening on this ecosystem, which on one side will say, no, that's the responsibility of ministries of environment. But on the other side, the ministries of finance will say that's climate change and therefore will put more money in climate change and less money in the Ministry of Environment. And the result is what we are having today. And that responds to your question, that and what His Excellency Tubona has indicated. We need to look at these environmental issues in a synergistic, integrated manner, because they are all linked, they are all connected, because otherwise we can ask, why are the climate community today are looking at nature as the basis for solutions for climate adaptation and mitigation? We'll say, look at the climate, you clean that warming, leave nature to us. But no, 37% of climate mitigation will come from nature-based solutions. So nature provides an answer to the global warming, and we can't therefore deal with climate change without nature. And you cannot deal with nature, especially if we are talking of food security, agricultural production, food systems, and the like, and saying that it has no connection with chemicals or waste or pesticides, and therefore pollution. So literally, you cannot deal with pollution and saying it has no connection with nature or it has no connection with climate. And what we are asking then the ministries of environment, finance, to look at the priorities at national level in an integrated fashion. It just can't be climate. It just can't be environment or agriculture. We can focus on agriculture because it is food security, but if that agriculture is not sustainable and we tox the land with pesticides and chemicals and saying therefore environment has no role, where will that take us? And we have seen in the recent years, I'm talking 10 years, where even at national level, there was a shift from, or the titles of the ministries shifting from ministries of environment, either shifting or separating, or both, to Ministry of Climate Change, Ministry of Climate Change and Sustainable Development, because now climate change became a priority at national level. But we can't deal with climate change in isolation with others. So whether it's Ministry of Agriculture or Environment or Finance, this is whole of government approach to identifying solutions on environmental issues. It can't be my ministry It can't be my sector. We will not win. And that's why we are saying the business as usual of yesterday is no longer an option of tomorrow.
I thank my panel, and I'll just, yes,
Just
please.
briefly,
Go
that I cannot agree more what Elizabeth said. That that's why that Japanese proposed that draft resolution or the UNEP 6 about the synergistic approach. So that I will explain that next session in the forum, as well as already that our draft proposal on the forum website. In the key document, so that please look at that proposal. So we need to not only tackle climate change, but at the same time we have to tackle biodiversity loss and pollution. So this synergetic actions are necessary we are doing. So just sorry that I took the time a little bit.
These are important words, and thank you for triggering the question with your proposal that we need to do more with what we have, the science, and taking things forward in terms of UNEP's work. Indeed, this brings us to the end of our session. I thank our distinguished panelists for their excellent contributions, for the strong messages that are on point, but also we leave with a very strong message. As we prepare on the road to UNEP 6, we need more coherence in terms of our policies. We need to put UNEP and the science produced and the work and the multilateral processes created at the heart of decision-making in an all government, all society, and is indeed, Elizabeth kind of put it on the table as an all economy approach, looking at integrated solutions, and we don't tackle one problem in isolation of the other. UNEP's work is more relevant than ever before, and your support politically and economically is always appreciated and needed to ensure that this important work continues. We thank our panelists and we thank you.